This video will address a circumstance where the knit tracer is failing to advance the Mylar. It can't read the pattern if the pattern's not rolling through it. We have a separate movie on dismantling and getting the casing off of the works so that you can get in and look at yours and see what it is that Jack is about to show you. Once inside, here's what we found.
If I turn it clockwise, this is driving that. See it move? If I turn it counterclockwise, which is how they...
As though to feed in the paper.
Right, watch. Everything's moving, but this is not moving, and that's not moving because it's on the shaft here.
After a lot of experimentation, Jack came to the conclusion that this gear might be on backwards. In order to change the position of that gear, the whole unit at this end of the machine really needs to come out. Jack has already removed a screw from this position, and here are 3 more that must also come out. With those loose, the drive unit lifts out of the rest of the machine.
We have the entire drive mechanism assembly out of the machine. In order to get that clutch bracket out, you have to remove the spring that was just very visible in there. Now, you have to work it off the tang that it sits on. And you see the Band-Aid on my thumb. That's because if you're not careful, it will come off and get you.
There is a little roll pin in this position, which must be pulled out with a small pair of pliers.
Once the clutch bracket is free, you can see you just slide the gear off the rod by moving it out, turn it around so the angle of the teeth are in the opposite direction from what they were. Once you have that clutch bracket assembly in, it's actually held in place by the first rod that we took out, and it's driving from the roll pin that's now on my left. Once you get it lined up through that clutch bracket, it's time to put the drive cog on the other end, and you have to turn it so that the hole for the roll pin will line up, and it's a little tricky. Get you a nice place that's light enough and you can see how to look down through the hole, line it up with the hole in that drive cog. Then we'll go, one end of the roll pin is tapered. If you look closely, you'll see it. So you can start it in there. We have to line it up. You can see it if you get just the right angle. And then one end of that roll pin is sharper than the other end. It's got just a tiny bevel, but that will let you start it into the hole in the rod. And so you're already through the first hole. Now we're going to use some slip joint pliers, and you want to get directly over the top of the roll pin. Looks good, but you need to check it by releasing the wide part of the plier and making sure that you feel it touch. So all it has to do is come flush on the bottom side, and you can feel that with the pliers. Now we're going to put that very dangerous large spring back on. One end of the spring is slightly more open than the other end. So you put the most closed end on first, and you may have to take a plier and squeeze it to get it on there. You'll notice I used the small flat tip screwdriver as a lever. Slip it through, get it on the outside of its bracket, and then you can slide it down the screwdriver onto the bracket. There's 2 notches in the bracket, and the spring goes around both of them. Once it's on, you can use the small pliers like I'm doing here to make sure that it's in those 2 little grooves. And look, it latches up like it should. So now I am checking out. It does go up and lock, it does release, and it does drive in the proper direction. You can see the nylon gear and its shaft turning correctly. What we've done is change the juxtaposition of the angle of the nylon cog to match the angle of the cylinder. Someone has had this out before, and when they reassembled, they put that cog in backwards. Okay, that right there is what is pushed with this. All right, there you go. We're lined up. And we had 4 screws right here.
Now we'll put it back together and see if it actually works when assembled. It's looking mighty good so far. The real-life test is, will the machine in fact advance the Mylar? It certainly rolls it in now, which it didn't want to do. And here is the row tripper being worked by hand in this case. And there goes the Mylar.
You can look in there and see your feed dog working the roller on this end.
So this particular unit is back to working perfectly. We have no way of knowing how many gears may be in backwards, but by this time in the life of a knit tracer, many have been apart multiple times because they needed servicing. Other things you might find when you get in there are excessive wear on either the gear or the roller. If that's the case, now that you know how to get in and out, it is certainly possible to borrow parts from one unit to correct another unit. And this one is such a success that I will try to hook it up to a machine and show you an actual operations video.